and it could have been avoided. A dangerous time because the Iranian government sees that the United States will not interfere with Camp Ashraf. They have a free hand through Iraq to destroy its most feared enemy, the MEK. Iran is a renowned terror-based country. Iran supports the Hezbollah, Hamas, with a huge military ready to attack Israel and other neighbors. It has a well-known rocket and missile delivery system and will soon have an illegal and inconceivable nuclear capability. They are the world's worst enemy. Most importantly, they remain the U.S. primary enemy. Elimination of Camp Ashraf started, first attempted 29 July 2009, and it has been continuously squeezed till late April 2011, and will continue until the United States takes the MEK off the foreign terrorist list and moves them to a third country. This is the formal justification that the Iraqis use to attack, maim, kill, refuse exit, refuse medical care, and all the other inconceivable horrors and tragedies occurring at Camp Ashraf. MEK is on the U.S. terrorist list, and the Iraqis think they are doing U.S. bidding. The terrorist list has brought the United States and the Iran government onto the same team. It is confusing to ourselves, to the world, and to our friends how Iran and the United States can be on the same side. This terror listing must be stopped. Secretary of State Clinton can take the MEK off the list immediately and stop all of Iraq's justification to attack Camp Ashraf. With great shrewdness, the Iraqi government planned and conducted those two attacks on Camp Ashraf while the Secretary of Defense, Secretary Gates, was in Iraq. How embarrassing it must have been for Secretary Gates. Could he have been showing implicit support for the attacks? Elimination of MEK? Death and destruction? Since he was there for both attacks. Did he say yes? Was he not consulted? Did he say no? But that's immaterial, because the attacks took place while he was there. Regardless, the internal and international message is the United States is not a player in this issue, and if that is so, then let the MEK come off the list, let them allow themselves a fair opportunity in Iraq, and move to a third world nation. Let's do that. The tepid response from the United States was only partially hidden by the facts. There were U.S. troops in Camp Ashraf until ordered out several hours before the attack. Afterwards, Iraq refused them to come back in, to return and assist with the dead and the wounded. It was as if the United States obliged the Iraqi government with such perfect timing of said departures. Most humiliating for the United States was that the Iran press reported the attack and also Secretary Gates' visit. They showed timing before all others with this damning comment that Secretary Gates gave Prime Minister Maliki the okay to attack. How does the Iranian media have access to such information? Embarrassing, and as unfortunate it is, this can be stopped if we take the MEK off the terror list. The United States and Secretary Clinton are confronted with two extremes of foreign policy towards Iran. On the far side, There is one that is complete and total acceptance of status quo. On the other side is forceful military actions to compel compliance by Iran. Unfortunately, acceptance of the status quo is the weak and ineffective imposition of 3 UN Security Council resolutions. They all are economic and political in nature, but ineffective, and allows Iran to continue to build its nuclear bomb, while others dither. On the other hand, the foreign policy to compel Iran into compliance is just plain not achievable now by the United States. The U.S. and its allies are consumed with Iraq, Afghanistan, budget and economic woes to start up another military effort. Add their actions and the actions that are going on in Libya, Bahrain, Syria, and one can see that the world is busy. Well, this allows Iran to pursue its goals quietly towards regional domination, and the continued development of this course towards the dreaded nuclear weapons. But please, listen. There is an alternative. There is a middle way that dramatically will affect Iran, distract them from their unacceptable adventures, and potentially create a regime change. That middle way is to support the Iranian opposition, to support Iranian resistance, to support the MEK. We can do so, and we should do so. Careful, prudent, and thought-out support to the organized, effective, and ever-present Iranian opposition, who some call the MEK, is essential. This organization will fund itself. This organization doesn't ask for anything. This organization is already covertly established in Iran. It has provided the United States military with over 4,200 separate sets of intelligence, some tied to the Iranian nuclear program. It already has connections, contacts, and relationships to effectively distract the Iranian government from its domestic and international misadventures. Let's just plain use it. Use the MEK. It does not cost the U.S. government anything. They don't want money, weapons, people, logistics, or support. They just want to be able to restore their homeland by themselves in accordance with the 2004 Statement of Principles as spoken by Madame Rajavi. Let me list them. Enjoy the rule of law and free elections. Participate in the freedom of religion. Deny nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. Enjoy freedom of speech and freedom of press. Participate in complete gender equality. Establish a republic. Enjoy freedom of assembly. Implement market economy. Participate in peaceful coexistence. But most unfortunately, the United States is still stopping the MEK from aiding the world because we have them on the foreign terrorist list. We are, in fact, supporting Iran by leaving them on the list, and how confusing is that foreign policy? Retention on the list, according to 2 years ago, was based on the U.S. government understanding the MEK has, quote, the intent and the capability, unquote, to conduct terrorist act operations. This was written in spite of the renouncement of terror and the removal of all weapons from Camp Ashraf in 2003. More importantly, Camp Ashraf has been attacked twice as they had no weapons. None were employed by the MEK. They just locked their arms. 10 killed the first time, 35 killed the second time. Clearly, this shows no intent and no capability to conduct terrorist activities. The U.S. government position should be reversed and done so fast. All of the Middle East is erupting and crying for democracy. We must not stand in their way. Immediate revocation of the terrorist list is essential. And we can do so because the petition remains with the U.S. government. The Federal Appeals Court in July directed the State Department to come back and show evidence of what allowed them to reach their opinion. The Appeals Court saw no classified or unclassified evidence to retain the terrorist organization. The government now, the U.S. government now is 70 days late in coming back with their response to the Appeals Court. However, the European Union and UK have taken them off the terrorist list. We should do so also. They delisted them 2 years ago. There are 113 congressmen who requested their delisting. A similar resolution with bipartisan support in both houses is circulating right now. Certainly the State Department can decide on an enlightened and informed and relevant foreign policy decision that protects the United States, the Middle East, and the people of Iran. It is essential that Secretary Clinton, in a courageous and with a powerful statesman-woman-like authority, who wrote the designation and delist the MEK. It is within her authority to do so immediately. Taking the MEK off the terrorist list is one thing that must be accomplished. Another is protecting the people in Camp Ashraf. In accordance with the Geneva Convention, and the residents of Camp Ashraf are actually designated as protected people. This protection should be led by the UN, UNAMIN, and supported with a detachment of U.S. soldiers in Camp Ashraf. There's no logic to assume Iraq will stop its efforts to totally eliminate Camp Ashraf. As a military person, I foresee actions like this. Expect the leaders to be targeted for arrest. Expect external communication to be prevented. We already have outsiders stopped from entering. And then we will have the Iraqi forces that currently remain in Camp Ashraf to start another and another and another attack. This will be done until homes are destroyed, inhabitants are murdered, and wounded left to die. This is the ultimate scenario that the United States cannot be part of. We pledge an open public and in total sincerity to protect the people of Ashraf. We must stand by that commitment, and we must also take the MEK off the terror list. But there are three significant events that have recently occurred that directly relate to the MEK. First, bin Laden was tracked, located, fixed, attacked, killed, and buried at sea. We cannot let this success cloud the issue. Reductions of forces in Iraq in 2011, reduction of forces in Afghanistan in 2014, and the near elimination of the terror group Al-Qaeda cannot be the beginning of the U.S. retreat from the Middle East. It cannot be the retrenchment of U.S. concerns in the Middle East. The United States must stay strong and remain committed as a world power to focus on its primary enemy in the Middle East, Iran. Second, currently, U.S. diplomats are recommending an internal relocation of the MEK and the Camp Ashraf residents. This is totally unacceptable. It will be a lesser location, without communications, without appropriate facilities, without barracks, billets, without housing, not capable of handling the extremes of the environmental conditions. It will disrupt Camp Ashraf and allow Iraqi to continue to harass the residents with the eventual elimination of all of the residents. This internal movement should not be part of U.S. foreign policy. Finally, this week, The French government eliminated all terror charges applied to the MEK in 2003. This was a success story. This was great news. It actually makes it so that there's little to no reason for the U.S., again, to keep the MEK on the foreign terrorist list. Because the so-called intelligence in those days was passed around. And if it was flawed French intelligence in 2003 and got into the U.S. consideration in 2006, it should also be discarded. We now have the French, UK, and the European Union all supporting and having done the delisting. The United States must follow. In closing, we as a nation must focus on the key objective: Iran. The MEK is the best dissident resistance group that can do that. Let's delist them. Let's move them through into a third country that is receptive to their presence. While doing so, let's protect them at Camp Ashraf and during that movement. And let them assist the Iranian people as the jasmine wind or the Arab Spring moves to Iran. This time, a regime change to a democratic society can and will occur. The United States must delist the MEK. Thank you.